Does anybody else have audio right now?
Yes, we just need to keep it on mute for right now till the zoning examiner starts the meeting.
Very
Thank you.
good. Very good. Thank you. Do you want to answer that?
It's 6 o'clock, so we'll get started. I would ask everyone to put their devices on mute until I call on you to testify. It just helps prevent feedback. Thank you. Good evening and welcome to tonight's public hearing. My name is John Urino. I'm the zoning examiner for the city of Tucson. I conduct zoning hearings on behalf of the mayor and council and make findings of fact, which I put into a written report along with my recommendation, which I then send along to the mayor and council for their consideration and for their final decision. My report will be based on the information submitted to me, which includes the staff report, the rezoning application, all written approvals and protests, all correspondence, and the testimony given at tonight's hearing. I will also include in the record all documents submitted to me up to the close of the public hearing. Note that the chat function is not part of the public hearing. You may use that if you need to communicate with PDSD, the folks who are running the meeting, but it will not be part of the record, and it's not a way to communicate with me. A recording of tonight's testimony is being made. If requested, a transcript will be prepared. In addition, the tape of the meetings is posted on the Zoning Examiner website. With that in mind, when I call on you to testify, I would ask you to please speak clearly and begin your testimony by stating your name and your address. The next steps after tonight's hearing are the following. First, I complete a preliminary report within 5 working days after the close of the public hearing. Then I prepare a final report. The final report will be issued 2 weeks after the close of the public hearing. For those of you who wish to receive a copy of the preliminary report and are not a listed party on the case, please send an email to tucsonrezoning@tucsonaz.gov. Again, tucsonrezoning@tucsonaz.gov, or call the Planning and Development Services Department. A copy of my final report will be available from the Planning and Development Services Department, and I send the final report to the Mayor and Council. At the scheduled public hearing on the case before the Mayor and Council will then vote on the matter based on my recommendation along with other factors. Tonight's public hearing will proceed in the following manner. I will open the public hearing and ask Ms. Maria Gayoso of the Planning and Development Services Department to give a brief presentation of the case. After Ms. Gayoso's presentation, I'll ask the applicant or the applicant's representative to make his or her presentation. I will then ask to hear from anyone in the audience who wishes to speak. I will start by calling on anyone who has sent an email into Planning and Development Services requesting to talk tonight, but then I will open it up and call on anyone else in the audience who wishes to testify. Since I cannot have any communication with anyone involved in the case outside of this public hearing, I would invite you to speak tonight if you would like to do so. After everyone in attendance has had the opportunity to speak, I will offer the applicant or the applicant's representative a chance to respond to any of the concerns or issues that were brought up. So we're going to start with the staff report. Ms. Gayoso, are you presenting it? And before I ask, I'm sorry, the case is case TP MOD 0723000021, Main Gate Overlay District, Speedway, Euclid. Ms. Gayoso?
Good evening, Mr. Urino. Yes, I'm Maria Gayoso, Principal Planner at the City of Tucson Planning and Development Services Department. This is a request to amend the existing Main Gate District, which is one of the urban overlay districts included in the Unified Development Code, the UDC. So this amendment to the MGD, the Main Gate District, is to allow for a mixed-use development at the southeast corner of Speedway Boulevard and Euclid Avenue. The proposed development will include student housing, workforce housing, may include some retail uses, and the proposal is to amend the MGD to allow a range of heights from 24 feet along Euclid Avenue, stepping up towards the east of the site to 48 and 74 feet in total. I have to mention that this project is an assembly of 8 parcels currently. Also have to mention that, and you have our staff report, but the proposed heights are also consistent with the policy provided by the West University Neighborhood Plan, which contemplated a step-down approach from 6 to 4 stories across the site. the proposed development that the applicant is requesting through the amendment of the MGD includes the relocation and rehabilitation of 5 residences currently on site, and the rehabilitation of 2 other single-family residences to remain on site, which are to become workforce housing units. The applicant is also proposing the demolition of one of the existing single-family residences on site, which is an adobe structure because of its current conditions. All of these structures that are being proposed to be demolished or relocated, or the ones that are to remain on site, those are contributors to the West University National Register Historic District, and will need the authorization by the mayor and council pending this request for amendment of the main gate district. And I would like to clarify this because it's a little bit convoluted. It's a long process the applicant is following. It's basically 3 main processes. One process is the demolition of the structure being proposed, and the relocation of the structures being relocated into the West University neighborhood within the historic preservation zone, the HPZ. That's one process, and that will require mayor and council action to allow for those, historic structures the way they're being treated as proposed by the applicant. The second big process, which is the process that we're here for tonight, is the MGD amendment, the main gate district amendment, which will also require mayor and council review and authorization. So we're following the requirements specified in the Unified Development Code, that's section 513.9. The amendment process of the MGD needs to follow the same process as stated in UDC section 355 for amending a planned area development, a PAD, which is the process that we're currently following, which is the same process as a rezoning process, which includes the notification to property owners within 400 feet and the neighborhood associations within 1 mile. So that's the second process. That's what we're for here tonight. And then the third process the applicant will need to follow if the applicant is successful with mayor and council, which, by the way, it's scheduled to be considered at the same time, this MGD amendment and the demolition, relocation of the historic structures. They're going to be, mayor and council is going to be considering those at the same time. So if the applicant is successful with these 2 processes, then we engage with the design review process as required by the main gate district. And for that, the applicant will be required to have another neighborhood meeting as required by the MGD prior to submitting their design package. And for that neighborhood meeting, the applicant will be required to notify all property owners within the West University Historic Preservation Zone, the HPZ. And so I just wanted to clarify that because there's been several comments that we received, some questions about it in the past week online. So I'm sorry this is taking a little bit longer than usual, Mr. Urino, but I thought it was important to mention it. So by the way, we understand the applicant has been corresponding with the Arizona State Historic Preservation Office to make sure that, the relocated structures will maintain their contributing status to the West University Historic National District. at their new location, which is a requirement of the main gate district, Mr. Urino. Finally, I let the applicant make his presentation, but besides, the site itself, the applicant is also proposing the dedication of required right-of-way to widen Euclid at the corner, to add a longer right turn lane, to add capacity to that intersection. Finally, staff is recommending approval. Staff, in the staff report, we state that we find that in compliance with Plan Tucson and the West University Neighborhood Plan and the University Area Plan. So that's all I have, Mr. Urino, if you have any questions for me.
Thank you very much, Ms. Gayoso. I have no questions right now. Appreciate it. Mr. Grimesman, would you like to be heard on behalf of the applicant?
Yes, sir. Thank you, zoning examiner Noel Grimsman, for your record, senior urban planner at Snell and Wilmer. We're here at 1 East Washington Street, 27th floor in downtown Phoenix. Let's see here, a little presentation. So let me see if I can get this to cooperate. Let's see if that is going to work. You should be seeing a pretty cover page slide there with any luck.
Yep, we're good.
Great. All righty. Well, again, thank you for the time this evening, and thanks to staff for all the work they put in this project. It's been a bit of a journey getting here. I think summarize some of those steps pretty clearly, but to provide a little bit of background here, the site is noted as an assemblage, and it's a unique spot. It's in the northwesternmost corner of the Main Gate Overlay District. But is also on the far eastern edge of the West University Historic District and across the street from the Feldman's Historic District as well. Close to campus, as well as to modern streetcar, and it's an area that's undergone some change over the years, as reflected in the plans that were referenced. Let's see, there we go, a little closer in. We started this process over 5 years ago, so it's been a bit of a long haul here. And the way that when this project was originally brought to us by Capstone Communities, who's our client, and they're a national developer of student housing projects. They love the location. Obviously, it's a good location for student-focused housing, but obviously it has a lot of historic resources, and so. One of the things that we started doing was looking first at the kind of the vision as expressed in the city's planning documents, specifically the West University Neighborhood Plan, which contemplated sort of a transitional area and buffering and transitioning from the historic neighborhood to the modern student housing that's to the east. And so in looking at that plan, a few key things that we took from it was, to help guide us, was looking at, they wanted there was some direction in there to preserve and enhance historic character of the neighborhood west of Euclid. So we wanted to make sure that was something that was factored in. And then obviously the plan recognized, there were land use changes in the area, between streetcar and other development in the area. And then also looking to promote a transit-oriented focused design in the infill development area or transition area that was identified, which this is in between Park and Euclid and Speedway and 6. So we looked at that direction and looked at the height and said, okay, that gives us sort of the guiding tool as far as where we would like to do here. So the next part of that process, then we started looking at was, okay, well, how what are the current development standards that are there, and the overlay provided a lot of clear direction as far, again, as tying in those plan goals of an urban neighborhood, mix of uses, encouraging the restoration of historic buildings, and a strong recognition of the historic resources that are on this specific site. And then also bulk reduction in that transition. So you can kind of see that exhibit there. There's these expectations there'd be these bulk movement in the buildings and transition. So we took that under advisement as well. And really, the only place where we had a conflict, and the reason we're here with this part of the request, is with the allowable height map. The currently adopted development overlay basically limits the height here, and that is intended to help preserve the structures that are on the site. So we clearly understood the intent of that, and identified that need to do a change if we were to do a project here. But the kind of first step, as we now had that information, was to then look at the historic resources on the site. And so we engaged a historic consultant and had him do an assessment of each one of the properties, both from a standpoint of their contributing nature, as well as what type of condition they were in, as far as from real good condition to poor condition, and everything in between. And so as part of that assessment, we then tasked our architect with looking at different test fits, trying to find ways, can we incorporate them all into a design? Can we incorporate some of them? What are the options? And what ended up coming out of that process was a recognition that we were going to need to remove several of the houses, and there's 5 of them that are in movable condition and are in a position where they need to be moved. The 2 southern ones, 6 and 7 here, are able to stay on site, and they also happen to correspond with across the street with existing homes there. Everything north of 6 and 7 there is actually abuts the church that's across the way. So contextually, we were able to work with 6 and 7 there, but 1 through 5 would need to be relocated. And then 1052 in the middle there is an adobe structure that our structural engineer looked at and was very concerned with. So that one was determined to not be movable. So that one, unfortunately, would have to come down as part of this project. But the other 5 would be movable. And so we then looked for a location to move these to, and we found a site. And then the next step there was we went and met with the board of the West University Neighborhood Association and kind of presented our proposal. And one of the things that came out of that dialogue was the site that we initially looked at was outside the district. And they said, we really like them to stay in the district and to remain contributors. That was very, very important to the community. So we went back to the drawing board, and we identified. It took some time, but we identified a site. Joel Ireland is on the line with us today, owns some property off of 2nd Avenue, and has a space where he could incorporate the homes there with new site 1, which would be a majority of them, with 1 home replacing a non-contributing structure that exists with a contributing structure at the corner. We also engaged Wolf Moving to evaluate moving them and making sure that everything could be movable. Just a few examples of some things that Wolf's moved in the past, so it gives you an idea of how they know what they're doing, and they were confident all of these structures could be relocated. So we laid out a site plan for the homes on the relocation site, and then started the process of confirming that these would still remain contributors, which was a request that we'd heard. So we took the relocation and demolition plans and started going through that process, which is obviously not the issue here today, but again, important background for you is so we went through that those reviews, started those review process. But another thing that we did on a parallel track was going to both the Tucson-Pima County Historical Commission and the Arizona Historic Sites Review Committee, which is part of the State Historic Preservation Office, as well as to the keeper of the National Register of Historic Places, to confirm that the placement and the relocation of these homes and their orientation would still deem them to be contributors to the district. That was confirmed on January of 22. And so we now know we can relocate them and retain them as contributors. So then we turned our attention to the site itself and the proposed development, now that we knew the footprint. And the site plan has evolved over the last few years, and this shows you just some iterations that we've worked through with different test fits and dialogue as far as where amenities could go and how massing could work and getting the unit count. And some of the things that we heard, that were important as we got towards the finished product. This is one iteration ago. was looking at taking the plan and really trying to incorporate a transition at the Speedway and Euclid corner to step down to the historic Feldman's District to our north, as well as addressing some drainage issues and traffic mitigation, looking at safety and operations, keeping balconies out of the design, and trash and service. And so we took all of that and we ended up here with this design today. And again, unlike a kind of a typical case, we still have to go through, staff mentioned, the design review process and all of those steps. But this gives an idea of where, it's trying to establish where the massing could be. Obviously, colors and materials and things are still up for kind of another process, but this gives an idea of what the final product could be from a massing perspective, which is what we're asking to amend in the overlay. As you can see, there's a transition at the corner, stepping back, and then the building kind of pulls back from the corner. Also, some step backs that were in the overlay today for these areas. And then it wraps the corner and heads down south. This is the view looking at it from the south, looking to the northwest. And the design is designed to step down as it heads towards the neighborhood. These are a little hard to see in here, but I'll show you in the site plan. But these are a townhouse type element, and this is where the 30 workforce housing units are. So we have the 2 historic homes that stay on site and are rehabilitated and will be incorporated into the project. And then this massing here will be a townhouse. There'll be flats, but there'll be a townhouse type style and scale with front patios. And tied into those to, again, transition that residential feel as we head over. So all of those elements were incorporated into the massing concept, which gets us to a final product. And I apologize, it's pretty pixelated, but essentially the important elements, it's 114 units and 418 total beds, and with 30 workforce units, which gives us a total of 134 units, 448 beds, and with 83 parking stalls to support that, again, with the TOD in mind. So as the site plan developed, in talking with the community, what we heard and what we wanted to address in here. So one key issue is related to traffic and looking at providing that additional right of way the city needs. Currently today, it's a very short right turn lane. Definitely substandard. So we worked with the Transportation Mobility Department on with our engineer to establish proper turn lane there. So that would be incorporated into the plan. We're also adding 2 feet to the width of the alleyway. It's a substandard currently at 18 feet, and we'll add 2 feet to make that 20. We also we wanted to make sure that there was incorporated an on-site drop off and pickup zone, so we don't have people stopping in the right of way, whether that be in the alley or obviously we wouldn't want them stopping on Euclid or Speedway. So we designed a drop-off pickup element here, which also serves another function. We heard a lot about trash service and issues that with the existing projects to our east, where they'll roll out the dumpsters and they'll stay out there in the alleyway, actually causing problems with people circulating through the alleyway. So we incorporate an area here so that can all be staged on property, and then operationally make sure that all of that is enclosed at the end of pickup. The other thing that we're looking at is at First and Euclid, working with the Transportation Mobility Department on pedestrian upgrades that might be possible there. We're not sure what that's going to be yet. Our traffic study actually just got the draft the other day, but they're looking at those traffic counts and seeing what pedestrian amenities improvements could be done there to solve some of the issues at that crossing. So this, and I apologize, just one note, this footprint here doesn't have the extended decel, or I'm sorry, right turn lane in it. So I'm sort of little discount. So just to be clear on that, but basically this gives you an idea how that ground level lays out. We have a commercial type frontage along Speedway. Something else we've heard, I think if you reviewed the letter of support from the Western University Neighborhood Association, there was some discussion about retail. From our perspective, we're very open on that retail, either being there or not being there. It was an element that was in the current overlay, so we incorporated it, but we've heard some comments on that. So we are happy to dial that down anywhere from where it is all the way down to 0. So we're very open on that. We can continue to talk to the neighborhood on what that could be. And then as you turn the corner, those would be the ground floor units, workforce units, and the 2 historic homes with all the parking wrapped behind that in the garage. primary access off the alleyway here, with lots of bike parking. As well, again, there's that pickup drop off. And then the mezzanine floor is basically the second level of where those workforce units are. So it'll be the second level of those. And then you've got the garage and the other frontal amenity spaces there. And then once you get up to the second floor on top of the garage, that's where you can see the layout of the units, etc. And one thing I wanted to point out here is the placement of the pool. Another thing that we heard from the community was some of the other projects have rooftop amenities, and that noise kind of spills out from there, as well as other things. So it was very important, and as our design evolved, was to internalize those amenities. So that's this design, which internalizes the pool and active amenities in there. As we head up a little bit further, again, standard foreplay here. As we go up a little bit higher, you start to see what the building pulls back. So again, that pool is under two floors of space before there's an opening, so that's down underneath. And then at the end of the day, this is kind of the change. We would kind of take the current corner, and this is what would be at Speedway and Euclid, and this would be those townhouse units. Working on the stoop designs. So again, these are just kind of placeholders as we work through, but these would be more stoopy. But the idea is, again, this will have a very walkable and residential feel to it. Something else as part of their dialogue with the neighborhood was in looking at some ways that tied into some impacts. We think, we've got residents that will be, walking through and using the community, and there's some existing conditions with sidewalks and ADA ramp access. We worked to look at improving the connection from our project through the neighborhood to Catalina Park and finding those gaps. And so basically this exhibit just shows we have a private agreement with the West University Neighborhood Association to basically add sidewalks where they're missing and ADA ramps that would be important to making that connection work for folks. So then we get to the text itself, with working with staff on, basically to summarize what we wanted to do was codify what we're showing. So everybody, the one concern that we heard was not allowing, we allow extra height, but then you go away and the project doesn't happen. And again, as noted, this is an assemblage of a number of properties. And so what we wanted to do is make sure that it was clear that this was all integrated into one project. So if you want to use these provisions as a property owner, you have to be, and that's what kind of the first D5 qualifier is you have to be part of a unified redevelopment scheme. You can't just take one of these parcels and utilize the height. So if for some reason this project doesn't happen and the sellers go separate ways, basically they would only be able to use the existing rights that they have. They wouldn't have any access to the change that we're making here. The second element was tying in the historic discussion. So it only allows for the one contributing structure to be demolished, which is the adobe, and 5 must be relocated, and they must be within West University neighborhood, so they remain contributors again, as we've discussed. We also allow for the rehabilitation of the 2 homes on the property as well, so those 2 are protected. The next element, C, requires rehabilitation for the relocated structures. So again, they're not just moved somewhere and left; that they're brought up to standard. So we'll be investing heavily in the facades of these homes to bring them up to again, nice quality standard. And then D has the height limits, which would be the new figure 8B, which again reflects the design we just walked through. And then E provides step backs to match that concept. So it takes the step backs that are currently in the plan, and we actually add to them to match up again with the massing that we've worked with. F provides the details about that townhome kind of detailing on Euclid. G requires those amenities to be interior to the property, and then H requires storefront features on the ground floor units, and that's along Speedway, with changing, as staff suggested, the retail requirement from a shall to a may. And again, we're open to making that none, but by allowing that may provision, that allows that flexibility. So, and again, to summarize, memorializing all of our commitments and the discussions we've had with the community. One of the things was security, and we're doing a development agreement with the city of Tucson regarding the security and the way that the property will be operated, to make sure that there's no nuisance issues and they have enforceable standards. The workforce housing units, those 30 units will also be through a development agreement with the city, again, to make sure they happen and happen as promised. Operational items, trash bin management, and then management and quarterly meetings with the West University Neighborhood Association. We're also going to incorporate that into our development agreement as well, to make sure that communication's open and they always have a good point of contact. We find most problems in life can be solved by knowing who to call. We also have those sidewalk and ramp upgrades that we discussed, which again is a separate agreement that we have with the neighborhood association. The relocation rehabilitation plan, we obviously have a contractual relationship with the owner of the property in which these homes are going to go, but we also have a requirement in the text amendment. So again, double protection there to make sure that that happens. The massing height and other standards for the new building, again, codified in the standards. There were three things that aren't in there today that are in the letter from the neighborhood, and they had three requests. One is the stormwater management. Normally that's required by the city of Tucson, as well as the dedication of right of way, and then looking at that First and Euclid pedestrian crossing. So the one change that we'd have is rather than leaving these up to kind of the standard code provisions, actually proposing one more item, which would be D5I, which would basically codify that those three things need to occur. So we would respectfully request that addition, if you're so inclined, to recommend approval. Again, subject to, I'm sure staff may have some massaging to do, but basically the intent is to codify that right turn lane will be extended. That will evaluate First and Euclid and whatever streets tells us, the transportation department tells us to do, we will implement. And then on the stormwater, capturing not only our own stormwater, which code requires, but also taking that alley that's next to us, since we're going to be widening it and paving it, there's an opportunity there to cure for collecting some of that. So we'll take that water on and address it as well in our design. So that would be the one addition we'd ask for. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you very much for your presentation. I have a couple of quick questions. The first is that last piece you talked about, the D5I items. Those are not yet in the staff proposed conditions and not yet in the proposed text amendment. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. These came out kind of wanted to make sure that we incorporated everything that was requested of us of Luna. So these would be the three that we'd ask. Staff didn't get these till late this afternoon because we were just finishing them up. So
yeah, just clarifying, no problem. So you're committing now to adding this to the text. Is that correct?
Correct.
All right. Then the second question is just the interplay between the separate mayor and council approvals, one on the historic home treatment and the other on the amendment to the text of the main gate overlay district. Those are separate processes. Is that right?
Correct. The overlay text process that we're in here with you is specific to just adding these provisions to the zoning. The city council and mayor still have to approve not only the text change we're proposing here, but also the demolition and relocation plan for the houses. So we've gone through the recommendation process on that and are waiting for this decision here, so those all can be considered at one time, since fundamentally they're all interrelated.
Right. So even though you've proposed adding those requirements regarding the relocated, rehabilitated, and remaining in place historic homes, those are not really part of your request to amend that's in front of me tonight. Is that right?
No, actually they, in a way they are. And so what's not before you is that actual relocation moving plan and those elements that are in that process. But in the text, we are requiring that function happen. So if, for example, if you were to approve the text, and the council decided to not, to approve the text, but then decided, we're not going to approve the relocation plan, then we'd be back to square one, because we would need to go back and revisit that.
So that brings it here. So then the last question is, so on the existing plan requirements, the property's limited to 40 or 56 feet, depending on where it's located, right? And what you're seeking here is an amendment to increase those currently required heights, along with other things, but is that correct?
Yes, sir. So the current heights, a little
Yeah.
bit of a hodgepodge, as you can see here. There's a 40-foot cap kind of in the middle. There's a 4-story 56 along Speedway, 3 at 40 on the corner. And then right along the edge where the Euclid homes would be, those would be capped to the height of the existing structures, I believe is what
Got
the
it.
overlay allows today.
Okay,
So,
I appreciate it. Thank you very much. I have no further questions at this time. So I'm going to go ahead and then start calling on folks who are hopefully in the audience and would love to hear what you each have to say. First, Amanda Paul. Ms. Paul, are you present?
Yes, hi.
Hey, please go ahead, start with your name, even though I just said it, and your address.
Sure. My name is Amanda Paul. I am not a resident of West University, but of Barrio Viejo. I'm at 501 South Convent Avenue. And I was born, raised, and live in Barrio Viejo. So I just wanted to say that as a lifelong resident of a historic neighborhood, I was so encouraged by seeing this responsible infill and the conservation of the contributing architecture. And that was it.
Okay, appreciate your participation. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
The next person is Bruce Lincoln. Mr. Lincoln? Not hearing Mr. Lincoln. We'll come back maybe later on that. Next, Diane Carahard. Ms. Carahard?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Please go ahead.
Thank you. Diane Careyhard. My address is 30 North Camino Miramonte. And I am not a member of the adjoining neighborhoods. But in looking at this, I think the current corner as it exists is kind of unkept and looks like it's falling apart. And I think something should be done. And also, having gone to the University of Arizona, I think it's a good idea to do as much university housing where they're not crossing any main streets like Euclid or Speedway to get to class.
Okay, thank you very much. The next person on my list is Elizabeth. Now, I can't read my own writing, and I apologize for that. Besnick Larson, is that even close?
Yes, it is. Thank you. I'm also known as Betsy.
Okay, thank you. Please go ahead with your name and address, and then please tell me what you'd like to say.
Yes, my name is Betsy Besnick Larson. I am president of WUNA, West University Neighborhood Association, and I'm at 820 North 6th Avenue. I reside in the neighborhood.
Okay, thank you.
So the West University Neighborhood Association comes to this meeting in support of the development and associated zoning changes to the Main Gate Overlay District. WUNA has been in conversations with the representatives of Capstone for over the course of 4 to 5 years. In our meetings, Capstone has demonstrated willingness to consider our neighborhood concerns in the design of their project and has made good faith efforts to incorporate changes to mitigate these concerns within reasonable boundaries. WUNA maintained throughout the discussions that the proposed zoning changes to the Main Gate Overlay represented a significant compromise to the integrity of the transition zone, a zone that was deliberately codified in 2011 as a protective barrier to our neighborhood from the encroachment of the U of A related development. We do not agree to these proposed changes lightly. We find that the modifications made to the building's design to accommodate water detention, sound management, and massing along both Speedway and Euclid helps to mitigate the negative impact the structure will have on that corner. We further appreciate Capstone's work to preserve the bungalows that will be impacted and keep them as contributing historic structures in our HPZ. Regarding the project's impact to traffic and pedestrian access to the neighborhood, Capstone proposed several significant capital changes that we see as an important benefit and offsets the cost of degrading the transition zone on the east side of Euclid. Capstone agreed to improve our pedestrian access from Euclid to 4th Avenue which includes, as you saw, sidewalks and ADA ramps. Capstone has also agreed to improve the safety of the pedestrian crossing at First and Euclid, which also Neil just presented. Capstone heard our concerns regarding security based on the unfortunate lessons that we have learned from the other student housing developments, and has drafted a security plan that will be filed with the city as part of the overall development plan. Also, we expressed concerns about the management of waste bins and how they will be placed. We desire off-alley sites for these bins and that they be returned to the inside of the building once collected. Our support for this project and the zoning changes to the main gate overlay includes a desire that the security agreement, the on-site and off-site stormwater detention, and the extended right turn lane minimize traffic congestion be included in the stipulations for the zoning changes. In addition, we request that any requirement for retail space in this project be waived. WUNA sees too many vacant existing first floor retail spaces along Speedway that have been associated with the recently constructed student housing developments. Further, we want to be on record requesting that the development agreement with the City of Tucson include a detailed security plan, details on how the trash bins will be managed, and that there be regular, at least quarterly, properly management meetings with WUNA to facilitate a dialogue on topics related to neighborhood items of concern. These stipulations need to stay with the property in the event that ownership is transferred in the future. In summary, WUNA, West University Neighborhood Association, is supportive of the applicant's request because of all the good faith efforts exhibited to address our concerns, and we request that those concerns be codified in stipulations in the development agreement with the City of Tucson. We have seen tonight that Capstone is supportive of these requests. Thank you very much for your work.
Thank you for your participation. It's very appreciated. Ford Burkhart, Mr. Burkhart.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Please go right ahead.
My name is Ford Burkhart. I have lived at 604 East First Street for most of 75 years, next door to 928 North Second Avenue, the site under consideration here. Since 1946, this classic 928 property has, to me, reflected the rich history of West University neighborhood, including this Mediterranean-style house once owned by Dr. Tom Edwards. We strongly believe the Capstone project, adding several more historic houses, will extend a fine tradition. It will offer at one property almost a mini museum of single-family architecture that West University is known for. My own home is a green and green style California bungalow from 1917. Across the street from us, to the west at 927 North 2nd Avenue, is the real Dillinger House in Mission Revival style, where I believe he was captured in the 1930s. This Capstone project is a rare opportunity to preserve our older architecture and the historic climate of West University, and we endorse the project heartily.
Thank you very much, Mr. Burkhart. The next person is Fred Farjo. Mr. Farjo?
Yes, my name is Fred Farjo. I live at 2566 North Reddington, but I have a property in the neighborhood of Drachman and Park that I've owned for 25 years, and I've lived in Tucson all my life. So I am interested in what develops around Tucson, especially around the university. I graduated there, both with an undergraduate and graduate degree. I think this is a sensational project. I think the developer has gone out of their way, along with all the other participants, WUNA and everybody else, to try to get something that I think is really going to work, and I'm really in favor of it.
Thank you, Mr. Farjo. Appreciate it very much. The next person is Jennifer Newman. Ms. Newman, are you present? We'll come back. The next person is Joanne Carahard. Ms. Carahard? Okay, we'll come back. The next person is Joel Ireland. Mr. Ireland?
Yes, hi, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Joel Ireland. I live at 939 North Second Avenue, which is directly across the street from the property which is proposed to take on 4 of the historic bungalows, as well as just behind the property that will take the other one. Just a moment for context. I came to in possession of these properties when Dr. Tom Edwards, who had lived there at 928 and 926 North Second Avenue, had lived there for over 70 years. That's the kind of resident we have in West University. When he died, a fellow bought those properties from his estate, a fellow who had kind of a reputation for building mini dormitories in north of Speedway, mostly. Of course, my neighbors, many of whom are here tonight, thought that that was probably an inappropriate use for those properties, that they should rather hold single resident homes rather than a dormitory style living. And so, because of a few things that happened, lucky things, I think, for the neighborhood, I was able to buy the property from him, and I was going to put just a couple of little bungalow homes on them when Capstone approached me and said, hey, we need to move some bungalows off the corner of Euclid and Speedway into the neighborhood so that they can be retain their historical character, and we can build a student housing next to the university, which makes sense. Students next to the university just makes all kinds of good sense. And so I worked with them very hard. They were excellent to work with. We worked out a plan so that I could obtain the properties. They would be protected by all the historical protections that a contributing home in West University has. And they committed very much to making sure that they will be returned under my and my son's care to become historic homes. And I think I really hope that that your recommendation, Mr. Urino, will be to accept this amendment that Capstone is proposing for several reasons. And the main reason, I don't know if you saw the article in the Star about the collaborative process that Capstone, the neighbors in the neighborhood, and I went through to work out this deal where Capstone gets to build its building. The neighborhood has some permanent improvements to it. We save 7 historical homes, 7 out of 8 historical homes, which are currently in a state of dilapidation. That corner is, it has one house that is so dilapidated, it's going to be condemned in weeks, probably. The other houses are headed that same direction if somebody doesn't do anything quick. And this is a unique opportunity to do that. Capstone has come up with a great deal of help, a great deal of money, and are really committed to moving these homes and getting them to become historic contributing properties. All of the neighbors, 100% of the neighbors who are contiguous to the property where the houses will be moved are in support of this. Many of them will speak tonight, I think. In order to save these homes, Capstone has to have its text amendment, and it seems like a good trade to me for a couple extra feet of height to serve these historic homes. So I just hope that you will find in Capstone's favor. And I could go through the other lists of reasons. 400 kids who won't have to drive to classes, they can walk or bicycle. lots of people to ride the trolley car. There'll be permanent sidewalks in the neighborhood. This process of collaboration is just really should be held up as an example of how these sorts of projects ought to be approached. And I think by your granting Capstone's request, it will, I think, set a precedent in Tucson to show people how it can be done. We don't have to fight. We can do it in a collaborative, cooperative way. So I appreciate your time and your listening. Thank you very much.
I appreciate your participation, Mr. Ireland. Thank you very much. I saw that Mr. Lincoln, Bruce Lincoln, had put a note that he doesn't know how to unmute his device. Mr. Beal, if you can send him instructions on that, that would help.
Can you hear me?
Yes, go right ahead.
I was trying to follow directions that told me I was supposed to call in versus zooming in, but thank you. Is it okay for me to speak now?
Yeah, let's start with your name, sir, and address, and go right at it.
My name is Bruce Lincoln. I'm the president of the Camille Van Hulse Foundation, which owns the home at 1029 North Euclid, just across the street from the proposed development. I'm a little stunned by what I've heard so far. I mean, obviously, all these people have been in Tucson a long time. They appreciate the historic, kind of the special community that we have there. My parents, I sent in an email which kind of described all this, but just to recap quickly, my grandparents moved to Tucson in the 20s. My grandfather, Camille Van Hulse, founded the Tucson Symphony Orchestra. They moved into the house at 1029 Euclid in the early 1930s. It was during the height of the Depression. So back then when you bought houses, they came furnished. So the house that we have, which is a historic site, has, well, anyway, I just, all the background that I have, I've been in the neighborhood for a very, very long time. I don't live in Tucson, but my grandparents did, and I was a frequent visitor to their house, and obviously have a vested interest in trying to preserve the neighborhood along Euclid. I think that the MGD is very specific about the transitional elements to basically step down the heights that are alongside Park. This all makes sense to me. And so the current request to change that basically eliminates that step down, and in my mind would basically destroy the Western University neighborhood district on the Euclid alignment. I mean, the current MGD is quite specific on that step down. I think, it was purposely so. And it makes sense to me, and allowing this change to the overlay district, I think would basically ruin the Western University neighborhood, its whole basically visual feeling, by allowing, this amendment to go through. So I strongly oppose, and, I'm hoping that I hear other neighbors that feel similarly. I mean, I understand the need for student housing. I just think that in this case, the trade-off is too much, that the impact of the neighborhood along Euclid would be the beginning of the end for that area of the West University neighborhood. So thank you for sharing, or letting me share my thoughts.
Thank you, Mr. Lincoln. Appreciate your participation very much. Samuel Ireland.
Coming, 1 second. God, you have to mute your. Hey, sorry about that. I just didn't want there to be. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, please go ahead.
Hello?
Did you unmute?
You're coming through loud and clear. Please
Can
go
you guys
ahead.
hear me? I just want to.
Yes.
Affirmation. Anyone? Yeah, great. Okay, great. I wanted to piggyback off of what the last speaker just said. So across the street from I think what he is, his property is what I believe to be either the historic homes that will stay in place or the townhouse style 2-story workforce housing. So I just want to make that clarification. I had written a very long speech, which I'll spare you guys from. So I'm just gonna go ahead and sort of summarize what I was gonna say. Basically, we've been in negotiations for 4 to 5 years with Capstone, the neighborhood. I've been to countless meetings all on this, all public meetings, by the way. And I also wanted to stress the nature of the article in the Arizona Daily Star. Usually it's developer versus neighborhood. They're always enemies. And in this case, we have a letter from the neighborhood that supports the project. We have a developer that's, in my belief, bent over backwards to mitigate many of the problems that that building student housing bring to the fore. Jesus Christ. I'm just trying to summarize here. Number one, we're moving 5 historic bungalows back into their residential context. Basically, where they sit now, they're surrounded by a church and commercial properties and other student towers. And so this project moves these homes back into their original residential context and basically saves them. That corner is a mess right now, and I can tell you, that I'm afraid to walk by those places. The current renters in those places are not people I want to deal with. Number two, that project is preserving 2 historical homes in place. That at the suggestion of Councilperson Stephen Kozachik, there'll be 30 workforce housing units that are 2 stories high to create a step down into the neighborhood. That Capstone is providing West University $275,000 to build sidewalks and ramps so that differently abled people can move about within the neighborhood. That they're working with traffic mitigation engineers, wastewater and flood engineers, landscape developers, and other planners to not only mitigate the externalities of their building, but to mitigate the externalities of previously built student housing that was built poorly. For example, one of the problems, I live right near Euclid and Speedway, and wastewater from the previously poorly built student housing tends to wash down our street, and Capstone has committed to mitigating that process. Apologies, I'll wrap up here. I wanted to just let me just read this. And they're also pumping $75 million into the Tucson economy using local constructors and creating jobs. Creating the opportunity for more students to live within walking or cycling distance to campus, minimizing the need for mini dorms within the surrounding neighborhoods and the pollution associated with driving to campus. I just wanted to thank Councilperson Stephen Kozachik, whose idea the workforce housing was, and also the leadership of WUNA Board President Betsy Besnick. I think her directorship has demonstrated a collaborative, forward-thinking, and solution-based leadership. And I think as Tucson struggles to retain being an affordable place to live, we need more housing. And we feel that responsible and cooperative infill development is one of the best ways forward. This project provides a blueprint for people to work together to meet everyone's goals. The final agreement has been the result of dozens of meetings, hundreds of hours of people's time and input, extreme effort from all sides, extensive give and takes by all parties, and is something that everyone that participated in should be proud of. Thank you. Apologies. It would have been a lot longer had I not summarized. Thank you.
Thank you. That ends the list of folks who emailed in. Would anyone else whose attendance like to be heard?
This is Dave Diamond. I'd like to be heard. I don't necessarily have to be heard next, but I do want to be heard.
Mr. Diamond, go ahead with your name and address and let me know what you have to say.
David Diamond. I live at 532 East First Street, which is on First Street, just a little bit west of Second Avenue. My house would be, is right next door to what I guess would be considered the contributing structure that's going to be replaced by one of the bungalows. And I don't want to repeat what Ford and Betsy and Joel and other folks have said, but I'm strongly in favor of the amendment, and I'm strongly in favor of this project. I have no issues whatsoever with higher density housing going in on that corner of Euclid and Speedway because it's consistent with the other high density student housing that's already there, which seems to work very well. And I would suggest that it's actually improved our neighborhood some because there's more students now on that side of Euclid and less on our side, and it's becoming more of a family neighborhood as opposed to a mixed student family neighborhood. So I think it's improved it in that fashion. I think the use of that corner right now is not particularly good. And I think this will be a great improvement. So in summing it up, I'm in favor of this project for the reasons that other folks have stated previously.
Thank you, Mr. Diamond. Appreciate your participation.
Welcome. Thank you.
Would anyone else in the audience like to be heard?
I can give a very quick comment.
I would like to.
We'll start with the person who started speaking first and then move on. So go ahead, sir.
Yeah, just a very brief comment. I'm actually a university student. I live on First Street north of Speedway. So I pass by that corner every day going to class. And, well, as many people have mentioned, the houses are falling apart. And I don't think they're going to make it much longer. So this is a opportunity to save those homes in my eyes.
Thank you. Someone else did go ahead, right ahead. Please start. Barbara Quaid.
Yes, my name is Barbara Quaid. I live at 612 East First Street. And I agree with the person who just spoke that corner, the southeast corner of Euclid is in disrepair at this point. And so Capstone has really done a good job of accommodating the suggestions from the West University Neighborhood Association and the neighbors. I live at 612 East First Street is north of the proposed site in Joel Ireland's property. I strongly feel that bringing these historic bungalows into the heart of West University neighborhood would be helpful for the whole neighborhood feel and would preserve these houses. I strongly recommend that that this project continue. And I would also just want to say that I have known Joel Ireland for a number of years now, and I know his work. I've seen the houses that he has renovated and fixed up, and they are always, he's so careful about historic preservation, and he is a craftsman. And so I feel that these bungalows that will be moved into the neighborhood will be treated with respect. So I strongly recommend that this capstone go forward.
Thank you for your participation, Ms. Quaid. Would anyone else in the audience like to be heard?
I would, my name
Go
is Paul. I live at 38 West Simpson Street. I would like to add my support for the project. And it strikes me that most of the people who have spoken in support tonight are really talking about preserving the soul of a neighborhood. And I'm aware that the fringes of our historic districts and our urban neighborhoods are what are in peril. And do I wish that the neighborhood wasn't shrinking? Yes, but this solution just seems like a perfect solution. It'll add to the fabric of the neighborhood. It'll, obviously preserve these houses. I just think it's a perfect solution. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Paul. Would anyone else in the audience like to be heard?
I would.
Please go ahead.
I know it says Anthony D. That's my husband. My name is Katie Reisner Adler.
Okay.
I own a home in Feldman's at 1139 North 5th Avenue. But I currently reside in Armory Park. I don't know if you need that. I just also wanted to register my support for this amendment and for the project. I really do find it encouraging and hopeful that developers can get together with the neighborhood and really listen and listen to the needs of the people who live in the surrounding area and are willing to make so many improvements, not only to the structure that they proposed initially, but to the surrounding neighborhood. I really look forward to those homes being restored and moved into West University, where I think they will be appreciated by the neighborhood, as so many people have said. So I'm in support, and thank you for listening.
Well, thank you for participating. Would anyone else in the audience like to be heard on this case?
Yes,
Okay.
my name is Gina Rossi, and I live in Ward 6, and I just wanted to say I'm in complete support of this, but what I also found very interesting is there was a documentary recently at HOCO and at the Arizona Film Festival, A Tale of Two Houses, 814 and 818 East Speedway. And when people in the screening room were talking about the possibility, and these are U of A students from 1982, up to almost current, about these two houses. And when they said that they may be restored if this project gets there, the whole audience was like ecstatic. So those houses have a historical, artistic environment. It was the founding of the punk scene and the music of Tucson, Arizona, historically. Very important houses to many U of A students from the 80s and the early 90s. So I really support what Capstone and the Irelands are doing. So thank you.
Thank you for your participation, Ms. Rossi. Would anyone else in the audience like to be heard?
Hi, yes, this is Jennifer Newman. Hi. I just basically want to also say I'm in full support for this project. I attended 2 meetings with Capstone and talked to the developers myself, and I think that I think their project is going to be very different than all of these high rises that we see going up with all of the commercial space on the bottom. And I grew up in Tucson, and places like that start to make me feel like I'm not living in Tucson anymore. And I am all for historic houses. I live in one. I live at 2831 East 9th Street. And my house was built in 38. And I appreciate that these historic houses will be preserved and they'll be put maybe in a spot that's even better than they are in now. And in terms of Capstone, there was a huge difference in the two meetings. The first one was more explaining, you know, everything that they're going to do. And then they actually took everyone's concerns and questions and took that into account. And I feel like they're still going to do that and support the community. And I just think it's a good idea.
Thank you, Ms. Newman. Would anyone else in the audience like to be heard?
I don't know if I'm allowed to speak twice.
If you have something new to say, go right ahead.
Yeah, this is actually going off of, I believe her name was Miss Rossi, what Miss Rossi said. And the artistic and nature of the historical properties. I've actually been in touch with some of the people involved in the documentary and other artists in the area, and have been working on ways that we can honor that artistic and punk history in Tucson. Also, this is probably 15 to 20 years away, but you know, this is a very expensive project for my family. But once it's paid for, we might be back in front of you, sir. Because eventually I would love to see this little group of houses become an artist in residency. That might be my way of giving back to Tucson, but that's sort of speculative at this point. But it's one that I thought I've had. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Grimsman, I said your name wrong the first time, and I probably said it wrong twice now.
No, Mr. Reno, that's fine. I get all sorts of variants on it, so it's not spelled like it's pronounced. So no harm there.
We share that. We share that then.
I've practiced yours a few times, so.
You may respond to anything you heard, of course, but I just wanted to clarify. The development agreement that the city is working out with the neighborhood association, that's not in front of me.
Correct. There are two different agreements. So there's a city agreement, which is the development agreement, which will be before the council. We have a draft with the councilman in the city attorney's office now for their review and discussion. And then we have a separate agreement with West University Neighborhood Association for the non-city related items, which is those sidewalk improvements. That's going to be a private improvement.
So as to that second piece, is there any reason you believe that the neighborhood association's concerns as expressed to you to date will not be met?
No, sir. Our goal is to make sure that all of their items were addressed, and I think, you know, evidenced a bit by the amount of support you're hearing today. A lot of that it's been a 5-year effort, and we've worked through a lot of issues. And I'll be honest, when we started 5 years ago, I would not expect to be sitting here with this much support as we are today. So it's been a lot of work, a lot of time and volunteer time. You know, I get paid to do this. Our team gets paid to do this, but the community members put in a lot of time with us, and that's all for free. So we really appreciate all of that. I think the only things I really just want to add in just kind of response to what we heard was, one, that was the first I heard about the documentary. So someone needs to send me a link. I am very curious about that. So I do want to check that out. And then to Mr. Lincoln's concerns and you know, about encroachment and pressure on the neighborhood, that was something that was of concern to us. as well as we heard from not only the neighborhood, but also from the councilman, was the intent of the overlay was to kind of finalize this edge and really let's draw a line where the university doesn't keep moving into the neighborhood. And so we took that seriously. And one of the reasons there's that townhome element, that two-story detail, is to get that scaled down at the edge, to force a line that comes across, and you've got single and two-story homes across the way. There's that relationship. I'd also note just for his edification that across from him would be the two historic homes. So his home will still be fronting a historic home from a scale perspective there. So that's kind of the delineator we used as you're looking south on Euclid. But the direction on our design considerations was very much driven towards that idea of setting the frame and not only at the hard corner to again respect and respond to the neighborhood to our north and the Feldman's area, but also along Euclid to again try to set that frame so that you never want to. I never like to use the word precedence in zoning and land use because every decision is different. But we wanted to make sure that this respected the idea of providing that frame where that. The edge of the main gate is there and transitions appropriately. So that was very important to us.
Well, thank you. So I'm going to close the public hearing on this case, and I want to thank everyone for their participation and hope everyone has a safe and lovely evening. Good night. Thank you.
Good night. Thank you for your time.
Thanks very much. Appreciate it.